Hi, welcome to Dwayne's Guitar Lessons. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins. In today's video, we're going to be continuing our series on how to improve our lead guitar playing by taking lessons out of this book right here, Lead Guitar Wizardry, a book written by yours truly, me. So if you want to improve your lead guitar playing, stick around. I'll show you a few things out of this book that'll really help you out. Alright, now, here we are with our next lesson on lead guitar wizardry. In our last lesson, we talked about the pentatonic scale, the minor pentatonic scale, and adding our personality notes, combining those notes to create our guitar licks, which is very important to know, because that's what solos are made up. They're made up of guitar licks, your hammer-ons, pull-off slides, you know, stuff like that. So that's what we kind of worked on last time, and if you didn't see that video, I'll leave a link below for that and some of the other videos as well. So that way you kind of get caught up on that. So we're going to work on today is we're going to look at our next lesson, lesson 11, which is pattern 1 extended notes. Okay, so not only do we have the notes that are in the pattern, like let's say pattern 1 for instance, okay, and we're playing in A minor. I choose A minor because it's a common key to play rock guitar in, okay? Now, our 5th pattern is going to be right here, as well as up here. And then our 2nd pattern is going to be right here, which we will go into further detail in some other videos, but right now we're talking about extended notes, okay? So, our next pattern's right here. You can tell we're still in the key of A, even though we start up here, because if we go through the pattern, you'll see that we'll come back to A, it kind of resolves on that A. See how it adds like a period at the end of the sentence, so to speak, okay? Now what we want to do is add some of these other notes to that scale to make some extended licks. So what I did right there is I added a few notes from pattern 5 right here. You got to start like at the 3, 5, 3, 5 again, and then slide into the 7. Now we're into the first pattern. Go 5, 7 again, 5, 7 again. Slide up to the 9. Now we're into the 2nd pattern, 7, 9, and then just go 8, 10, 8, 10. So that lick right there that we did, we used all 3 patterns. Part of pattern 5, part of pattern 1, and part of pattern 2, okay? All right, so that's what you want to do as well. And in order to really do that, you got to be able to visualize the patterns. You got to know them. You got to know these scale box patterns, okay? It's very, very important. It doesn't come overnight. You just got to work with it and visualize it on the fretboard, and then you can master the intervals. Remember what we talked about the intervals? What that is, the distance between 2 notes. In each one of these scales, any scale really, doesn't matter if it's the pentatonics or the modes or Egyptian scales, you know, there's thousands of them, so it doesn't really matter. They're all based on intervals, okay? You just got to master the intervals, and then you'll sound great every single time, okay? And I've been playing these long enough that I know the intervals. You could just play a solo on 1 string, even. And then you know your root notes, okay? We're in the key of A, so we want to know where our A's are. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, you know. They're all over the fretboard. That's why I say it's so important to know your notes, okay? Learn your notes, very important to know that, okay? That's going to let you know where these root notes are, and that's going to give you good places to land when you're flying around the fretboard, okay? So that's what lesson 11 talks about, is our extended notes, okay? And then we talk about some of the licks that I showed you in our last video. Okay, so we kind of went over that. And I say here, by adding notes to pattern 1 from other patterns, 5 in all, okay, you extend the life of the notes. You also get more familiar with the note location on the fretboard. So that's really important. That way you know where those notes are, okay? Always be practicing visualization. Always be practicing you know, visualizing those notes, those patterns on the fretboard, and that way you'll know where those intervals are, okay? You'll know if they're a whole step or a half step or whatever they are, okay? You must be able to see the notes on the fretboard. This will allow for faster finger placement and note location retention, okay? So the more you practice them, the more you're gonna see them, the more you're gonna know where they're located, and you're gonna be able to master that roadmap that we're trying to build on the fretboard, because with that roadmap, then we're gonna be in key, and we can play all over the place and sound good. That's what we wanna master, okay? All right, so extended notes are a good way to practice your different techniques, like your sliding technique, you know. See, I was able to go from 3 all the way up here to the 17 by knowing those intervals and staying in key. Okay, so that's what you want to master with that information, all right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at lesson 12 real quick, the major pentatonic scale, okay? What's funny about the pentatonic scale is it can be played both major and minor, all right? It's the same notes as the minor pentatonic, just you start on a different location, okay? For instance, since an A minor is a relative to C major, and why are they relative? Because they're made up of the same notes, okay? If you go through the note thing that I'd discussed with you back in the major scale in that video, you'll understand what I'm talking about, okay? And I'll probably make a video of that. If you need me to, I can make a video of that and discuss that a little bit more in detail to kind of show you about that, all right? But anyway, we're going to probably discuss a little bit more of that in volume 2. I didn't really want to get too technical with this volume. This is volume 1. We just kind of want to get the fundamentals down. Then we'll look more at the technicalities in volume 2, okay? So like I said, they have the same notes, and that's why they're relative, okay? So if you're playing an A minor, you would start at the 5th fret on the 6th string, A right here. Play this way. That's our A minor, our root note is the A. But we could also play in C major and start on the C note on the 6th string, which is right here on the 7th fret, okay? So we could go. There's from C to C. See, we just had those 3 C's. This C, and this one. See, now we just made our C major pentatonic scale. And if you play with backing tracks, which I'd highly recommend you do because they're all over YouTube, you can go to a backing track that's C major, and you can also play over a backing track that's A minor, and you'll see very clearly that the notes are the same. Since they're the same, they'll work, okay? So if you're playing over C major, you know, start with your C. Not to say you couldn't use your A, but you want, because it's in the key of C, of course, but you want to make your C your root notes, okay? And you could still be using the same notes, it's just where you're starting at that makes a difference, okay? And always remember, too, that your relative minor is always going to be 3 frets down, a whole step and a half from your relative major, all over the fretboard, okay? So if we're in A major, if we're playing A major, our relative minor would be 3 frets down, which is our F sharp minor, okay? And if we're playing D major, our relative minor is going to be 3 frets down. It's going to be B. B minor is our relative from the D major, okay? So it's going to work, this concept is going to work with any key you're playing in, okay? But you got to know those relatives. You got to know your minor and your major, what's relative and where they're located on the fretboard. That's why it's important to know your notes, okay? So that's the thing there that we're talking about. So, like I said, our A minor is going to be the same as our C major because they're the same notes, all right? And that's kind of what we talk about here. I show you a couple examples here in the book on how the pattern is the same, but you just start in a different position, okay? One secret to remember is that the relative minor of any is located 3 frets down from the fretboard, and that's what I just showed you, okay? So I talk about that all in the book, about that. So that's the main thing that you want to think about, okay? Is always remember that, and you can practice that too. Practice your minor. Find those root notes. your 3 A's, like if you're playing A minor, A at the 5th fret, A at the 7th fret, 4th string, and then A, once again, at the 5th fret on the 1st string. Okay? If you're playing in C major, you're going to start on the 8th fret, okay, either with your pinky or your 3rd finger, doesn't really matter. And then you're going to go to the C, that is on the 3rd string, 5th fret, to the C that's on the 8th fret on the 1st string, okay? So there you can play actually 2 keys, either C major or A minor. And that's what's great about this pentatonic scale, is because it has a lot of great things about it that you can do with it, okay? So, why don't you practice that? Practice, like I said, get to know your patterns, and we're going to discuss more about these patterns in here as well, okay? Because I'm going to go through all this stuff a little bit more. Each pattern, I go through that all in the book, and just kind of trying to show you a few things that you can do with this kind of stuff, okay? Because once you get this foundation down, it's going to really be really great for your lead guitar playing, okay? You'll be able to do some really cool stuff. So make sure you master that stuff, all right? Make sure you master your hammer-ons, your pull-offs, your slides, your alternate picking. If you do it real fast, tremolo picking, we'll talk about some more of that too in some lessons in the future, okay? So I want to say thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Work on that stuff. Be sure to visit my website at dwaynesguitarlessons.com for more great information on how to play guitar. And like I said, if you need some help, get this book. This is a great book. You can find it on Amazon, or like I said, you can find it in my eBay store, and I'll ship it to you personally myself. I'll sign it for you if you'd like me to. It's a great book. This is a great thing on how to get started playing lead guitar. And I'm working on Lead Guitar Volume 2, and I got just a little bit here. It's table of contents. What we're going to learn in that book as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with just give you a review of what's coming up with that book. Volume 2 of this is, we're going to start off with our pentatonic scale licks, some licks that you can learn in these patterns. I think that's real important. Okay, then in Module 2, we're going to go into the major scale mode, what the modes are, and we're going to go through all 7 of them: the Ionian, the Dorian, the Phrygian, the Lydian, the Mixolydian, the Aeolian, and the Locrian. Okay, and then I'm going to show you some licks within those as well. Okay, and that's going to go basically through Module 2 through 4. And then Module 5 is going to be some minor scales. So we're going to have our natural minor scale, which is our Aeolian. We're going to go a little bit more in depth on that. And then I'm going to show you the melodic minor, the harmonic, the diminished, and then a little bit more in depth on the blues scale, which we're going to be discussing in our next video here on Lead Guitar Wizardry Volume 1. Okay? So we're going to go a little bit more in depth about that. And then in the 6th module, we're going to be talking about some additional secret insights, like some repeated licks or some repeated rock licks. Those are always good to know. So I give you a lot of examples of some rock licks that you can learn to master for your lead guitar playing. Show you a little bit more about finger tapping. You know, that's a great technique, you know. That's a really cool technique that you can do, make some really cool stuff with that. And then also some double stops, and some melodic sequencing, and of course the all infamous sweep picking arpeggios, okay? And I always also go over some of the mode formulas, and you know, there's just all kinds of good stuff in here that we're going to be discussing in Volume 2, all right? So I almost have that finished. Got to take a little more stuff with that, but that's what's coming up in Volume 2, so I want to say thank you once again for watching this video. Appreciate it. Check that out. Make sure you work on that, okay? Make sure you understand what I'm talking about with the major and the relative minor. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and check out the links below, because I always leave links in there for the videos and some of the tools that I use to help me with my lead guitar playing that could help you as well, okay? So until our next lesson, you take care.